Water damage. Ugh. Just hearing those two words can make any homeowner's stomach absolutely drop. But what if we could take that moment of sheer panic and turn it into a clear, manageable plan? Well, that's what we're going to do. This is your survival guide for when water invades your home, and more importantly, what you can do about it. Let's dive in.
You know, it almost always starts small. Maybe a little puddle from a dishwasher hose or a tiny drip you notice after a big storm. And it's so tempting to just think, I'll just mop that up. No big deal. But here's the thing. That little puddle you see, that is just the tip of the iceberg. What's happening underneath, behind the walls, that's where the real race against time begins.
And this number right here, this is what changes everything. 24 to 48 hours. That is the critical window. It's the amount of time you have before all that hidden moisture in your walls and floors becomes a perfect breeding ground for mold. After just 2 days, what was a simple water problem starts turning into a major health hazard and a serious structural issue. So the main takeaway here is urgency, absolute urgency. Every single minute that goes by, water is working against you, soaking deeper into materials, causing more damage, and making the final repair that much more expensive and complicated. It's a relentless opponent.
Okay, so if we're going to fight back, we have to understand the enemy, right? Let's take a look at this unseen invasion, how water actually gets into your home in the first place. It's not always some dramatic flood. More often, it's a sneaky invader using some pretty surprising entry points.
The culprits? Well, they're everywhere. If you live in a cold climate, that constant freeze-thaw cycle is a huge enemy. Bursting pipes you can't even see. Your trusty washing machine, the water heater, they can fail without any warning. And sump pumps, oh man, they have this terrible habit of failing during a power outage in a storm right when you need them the most. From the roof all the way down to the foundation, your house is basically in a constant battle with water.
So we know how water gets in. Now let's talk about the real dangers. Because the problem isn't the puddle you can see, it's what's happening where you can't see it. And as you're about to find out, not all water is created equal, not by a long shot.
So professionals actually classify water into different categories. You've got Category 1, which is clean water, say from a broken water supply line. Yeah, it's super damaging, but it's not an immediate biohazard. Then you have Category 3, or black water. This is a whole different beast. We're talking about water from a sewage backup or a river flood, and it is teeming with dangerous bacteria and pathogens. Anything porous it touches, your carpet, your drywall, it's considered contaminated and has to go.
And this timeline, wow, it shows you just how fast things can go from bad to worse. Within minutes, water is just soaking into everything. But give it just a day or two, that's our critical window, remember? That's when mold starts to grow. Within a week, the actual wood frame of your house can start to swell, warp, and even rot. This is why waiting is truly the worst thing you can do.
So, how can you spot a problem you can't see? You got to become a bit of a detective. Your own senses are your best tools. That musty smell that just won't go away, that's a huge red flag. Then look for the physical signs. Paint that's bubbling, wood floors that are starting to cup or buckle, baseboards that look a little swollen. These are basically your home's SOS signals, screaming that there's moisture trapped where it doesn't belong.
Okay, that's a lot about the problem. I think we get it. So let's pivot and talk about the solution. This is the restoration playbook. And what you're going to see is that a proper response to water damage isn't just about grabbing some mops and fans, it's actually a science.
Now, you might be tempted to think, hey, I can handle this myself, but the risks are pretty significant. A DIY cleanup almost always misses that hidden moisture, which leads directly to mold, not to mention safety risks like electrocution. Professionals, on the other hand, use a scientific process. They find and eliminate all the moisture. They use special treatments to prevent mold, and, this is a big one, they provide the super detailed documentation your insurance company is going to require.
The professional playbook really boils down to 3 clear phases. First, there's the emergency response. Stop the leak, get all that standing water out, fast. Second, and this is the most critical part, is the structural drying. This is where giant air movers and industrial-grade dehumidifiers work 24/7 to literally pull moisture out of the very bones of your house. And finally, verification. They use science to prove the job is done right before any rebuilding can even start.
And that, right there, leads to the million-dollar question every single homeowner has. When all the loud fans finally stop, how can you be absolutely sure the problem is solved and not just hiding, waiting to come back?
Well, the answer is technology. Professionals don't guess, they measure.
They use these calibrated moisture meters that tell them the exact moisture content inside a piece of wood or drywall. They use thermal imaging cameras. It's like having X-ray vision for water, revealing all the hidden cold spots where moisture is hiding. They even use something called psychrometrics to basically manipulate the air and create the perfect, most efficient drying environment. It's seriously cool stuff.
And all this science is governed by a set of standards from an organization called the IICRC. The easiest way to think of it is like the official rulebook for restoration. It's kind of like taking your car to a certified mechanic instead of just some random person with a wrench. A certified technician knows the science, and that's your best guarantee that the job is done right and that mold won't show up like an unwelcome house guest a few months later.
So, the equipment is running, the immediate crisis is under control. But now you've got to navigate the aftermath. This part is all about realistic timelines, dealing with insurance, and just the practical side of getting your home back.
One of the first things to get your head around is that this is not an overnight fix. Proper structural drying, it's a marathon, not a sprint. It typically takes somewhere between 3 and 7 days. It's this slow, methodical process that you just can't rush. Trying to speed things up is exactly how you end up with trapped moisture and big problems down the road.
So what about the bill? This is where you need to know one critical phrase for your insurance claim: sudden and accidental. A pipe that just bursts out of nowhere, that's usually covered. But a slow drip from a pipe that's been happening for months, insurance often calls that a maintenance issue, and that's usually excluded. This is exactly why documenting everything right away is so important. It's also really helpful to know the difference between two words that get thrown around a lot. Remediation is the emergency triage. It's stopping the bleeding, drying everything out. Restoration is the rebuild, putting it all back together again, like replacing drywall and flooring. Remediation always has to happen first.
All right, for our final section, let's shift our thinking from just reacting to a disaster to actually being proactive. How can you build a solid defense plan to protect your home from water damage in the first place?
So if you walk into a water disaster tomorrow, here is your immediate 4-step action plan. Step 1, if it's safe, shut off the main water valve to your house. Stop the source. 2, get your valuables, photos, important documents, and move them somewhere dry. 3, pull out your phone and document everything. Take pictures, take videos for your insurance claim. And 4, call a professional immediately. Remember that 24-hour clock is ticking.
And honestly, the best part is how simple prevention can be. Seriously, know where your main water shutoff valve is before you need it in a panic. Go test your sump pump once in a while. Take 30 seconds to glance at the hoses on your washing machine. These tiny little checks can save you from a massive, expensive headache down the line. So we'll leave you with this last thought. You lock your doors, you have alarms, you do all this stuff to protect your home from threats on the outside. But what if the biggest, most costly threat is already inside your walls? Are you prepared for that?